Welcome back, everyone. It's time for our next presentation. So I'm going to hand things over to Rachel and Norm.
All right, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. I can see your screen.
Thank you, great. So hello and welcome back from break. And welcome to story mapping to align and prioritize your team's feature development. I'm Rachel Lynn. I'm on the product team at DCE, and my preferred pronouns are she and her. We've had success using story maps sessions with our customers as we co-develop and also on our internal projects to keep our projects on track and our teams aligned. And we really thought this might be a great thing to share. If you haven't used them, maybe this will be an opportunity for you to try them out. If you have used them, maybe this is a good refresher, and or it might just be another take on something that you already do.
Yeah, hi, I'm Nora Marsett. I'm the designer here at DCE. My preferred pronouns are he and him. Hopefully everybody can see our Miro board correctly. Yeah, what are we going to learn? We're going to learn how to bring about team alignment and story prioritization through story mapping. Why story mapping? Let me just click to the next slide here. So story mapping helps us to prioritize backlogs and to ensure team alignment and understanding. So one of the first things we want to help understanding is some of the tools you can use. And the actual tool we're using on the screen here is actually the Miro. This is basically an unlimited whiteboard. I'd love it if everybody could click on the link that was shared. And if you haven't, again, we can try that one more time. It'd be great to see everybody on the board here at once. I'll make sure I can show all the participants. I see a couple. All right, everybody's starting to come on here. So I'm going to start.
And feel free just to watch and follow along that way. But if you want to just get a feel for the application, feel free to jump in.
Sorry for all the zooming here, but what's nice about this tool is that if we can see everybody's everybody on the board is all over, and so I actually can turn off that ability to show collaborators cursors. And one of the reasons we want to do that depends upon the activity you're doing. If you want to make sure that everyone is there, that's one way to make sure you can see people moving and being actively engaged in what your conversation is. In this case, I'm actually going to turn it off and hide everybody's cursors for this moment. And I'm also going to grab everyone to me. So everyone should have been brought to the screen in front of you. Why story mapping tab. Let's see, what else can I share about this tool? One of the things you'll see right now is the why. On the left-hand side, you'll see all my frames. And when you actually start the product, you actually won't see the frames. You'll see just like a big blank screen. But one of the things you can do is just create a frame quite quickly here. Just, we can change the color to the background. We'll just maybe do a white. And then we start adding sticky notes. So it's just the same as if you're in an actual whiteboard. Post-it notes, we can start changing these colors to make some some differentiation that we'll see later on in our presentation. But you can start actually typing in these Carlos and Vera, and we can actually then start copying these quite quickly. You can see how quickly we can start filling up an idea or a conversation within the virtual whiteboard that we have.
And the great things about the frames is that it helps to focus our attention, focus the team on what we're doing at a given time. And also that bring all to me feature has been very helpful too. Sometimes when the canvas is huge, you just kind of need that help to get to where everybody is.
So I'm going to turn on the frames back on because we kind of have a process to go through there. So I'm actually going to go back to Rachel.
All right. So Before I start, a word about Agile. So DCE does use the Agile framework. So I just wanted to let you know if a frame is unfamiliar, just please don't hesitate to ask in the chat about whatever that might be. And we'll have time at the end in Q&A. So how do we get started with story mapping? First, we need to gather the team. We need to make sure that we have the right people at the table. This might be your technical and product teams. This might be even some key stakeholders. For this, preparation is key. So whether you have the opportunity to be in person and it's Post-its and Sharpies and a huge whiteboard, or in our case, a virtual space, you want to make sure that you've kind of set the stage like we have here. We might have a template here, and we might have another frame that is for all of the team collaboration, but that preparation is really helpful and will help your session be a success. So another thing that you might want to do is what we just did with Norm. You might want to have an orientation on the tool, just to make sure that everyone there knows how this tool works and is able to navigate, again, to help us just be successful, and so everyone is ready to participate when we start. So as you can see here, Miro has some great templates to start with, a plethora of templates. So this is actually a user story template. And we tend to start with these templates just to give us a structure. We might move things around. We might have be opinionated and rename something. And in fact, I did rename. These were stories. It was different on the left side, themes, and we added, because we like the structure of themes at the top, epics, and stories. So, so it is great to start with those templates. So the very first step of story mapping is to define your goal. What is the project or feature we're here to map out, and why, so that everyone knows what we're building and why it's important to build it. We start then also to build that common language around the project or feature. So in our example, we're trying to determine how to be the best pedaler in the whole galaxy. Yours will be more detailed and focused on the user. Like, for example, our goal is to build out faceted search for our digital repository so that our students and researchers can more easily find. So you get the picture that we're really trying to be a little bit more detailed about what we're building. So we want to define what that is. And then we also want to, this might be that we're going to story map an entire project, or we're going to just focus on a key feature or a set of features. So thank you. So the next step is idea generation, and this is where team collaboration is super important. So in this case with Miro, everyone would have been invited to the board and would have the opportunity to grab Post-its or cards and start filling out. And this is where we are just generating as many ideas about the project or the feature that we can. So we want to come to consensus first on who is the user. Throw out, again, all of the ideas. In this case, we've kind of stopped at dog owner, cat owner, and iguana owner. If anyone has an iguana, I really want you to post that somewhere. But so we have to kind of start there and get that structure of who will eventually be the user. So some of for instance, like all of our users here need fresh water and food, but then it could be that the iguana owner has some really specific requirements, and we just want to note that, whether it's here or in one of the next steps. So in this part, we are trying to figure out what are all of the things that come to our mind. Eventually, these will be stories. or it could be epics or themes, but really we want to generate all of the possible ideas and even identify the edge cases and that might come up. So again, I said that these will become our stories. What we want to do is give everyone enough time to generate as many ideas as possible, using one card per idea. Encourage people to write down everything, even if they already see it on the board. What we find is that duplicate cards really can indicate that there's already a sense of shared context, which is always good to know. And it might also indicate just inherent value of that one thing. So for this step, we want to find all of the ideas and, like I said, expose all those edge cases. And as you can see, Norm is starting to already group them. And that's the next step. So the goal here now is to put all like ideas together. Outliers might have their own separate space. But eventually we will start to have a structure around the themes, and themes will emerge. So labeling is useful in that. So we like to also use verbs whenever possible. This just helps us stay connected to the action and the user value. So at this point, you could read them all aloud. We like to do that. So you can read them all aloud. You can assign one person to read them and someone else to move the cards around. You can go round robin fashion and have everyone take turns reading. But reading them aloud really helps us focus on the one thing at a time. And this is a good time to encourage conversation and for the team to seek clarification. It could be that, you know, some of these make sense to the person who wrote them and not so much to others. So conversation is super important. Some broader themes and epics might start to emerge at this point. Right here, you see that the themes are kind of labeled in black. And it's good to identify those as we've done here. So it starts to resemble a little bit more of the structure that we're going to eventually see in our story map session. So you can see that we've got the high level theme of medical. And then we've kind of, as we've moved some things around, we've realized, oh, you know what, there's this theme of what about the one-time visit to the vet or the emergency vet or the routine visits. So then when we go to our, before we do this, I just want to, yeah, no, you're right. So a key here now is that we could start to put these onto our story map right away as is. But one thing that we've found is that it's really important to just take time to figure out what is the priority of all of these, what's the value and what is the effort involved with these. So I don't want to go too deep into this because this could have its own session, but an effort impact scale is super helpful in determining what we should focus on first, second, and third. In our example, probably all of these are high user value because as a responsible pet owner, we should really do all of these things. But it might be a matter of when do we do them. So as we plan our actual work, determining the value and effort will inform what work we do and in what order. We want to deliver really the highest value as we possibly can. But if we can determine what is of highest value and least amount of effort, we might want to play those stories first. But on the other hand, it could be that we have identified some super high value stories, but that also have really high effort. And it could be that that is an indication that that's something of risk, and maybe we want to play that earliest and get that in the top of the backlog. So this really helps us determine what's important to do and kind of when. Again, this is another opportunity, a really good opportunity to really have those conversations and work with the development team, especially the development team might, someone might say, well, I think that's really high effort, where someone else might say, I don't think so. And this is a conversation that we can have here. We can also have these conversations more as we're doing our backlog refinement and story writing. But this is a good place to start those conversations. And it really informs what we're going to then put on our story map. So if we go to the story map, and I want to point out at this point that this all doesn't have to be in one session. In fact, it probably won't be, and it's going to be iterative. We've come back to these a number of times or started fresh. So just know that this might come 2 or 3 days later after you've started this whole process. But so again, we're going to use this Miro template. As you see, it starts with the persona. For this one, we're focusing on dog owner. And we start to populate this board with all of those tickets that we've been talking about for maybe days now. And we start to just really flesh out the ideas. We've here determined that, again, like we did saw in the brainstorm session, that we have feeding, but really that comes down to more of feeding and hydrating. And then we get down to the story level, where you might want to put these into story format. If you're familiar with the story format of as a blank, I want to blank so that, and the benefit. In your world, it might be, as a researcher, I want to search the repository so I can find a rare manuscript I'm looking for. And then from there, whether it's in story writing sessions or here, you can start to develop what are those acceptance criteria for those tickets. But again, the real important part of a story mapping session and all of its parts are really to gain that kind of shared context for what we're doing and through all those conversations. All right. Oh, and then so we've talked about our dog owner, but it could be now that in another session or as we've been talking, we've just been pulling some of the cards that are specific down to this other board for cat owners and iguana owners. But eventually we'll want to flesh out the stories that are specific to those different personas as well. All right. Well, so what are some of the key takeaways that we want to kind of highlight? Again, plan for multiple sessions. Story mapping can take multiple sessions with the team. The amount of time depends on whether you're starting to map out an entire project, or if you are really going to focus on a key feature, maybe it won't take quite as long. Story mapping can be done at any point in the project. This is really important. It's a way to align in the first place, but it's really another way to realign at any point in a project for any reason. It's you might get the eye roll from the occasional team member that, oh my gosh, not another meeting. But if we end up aligning more than we were, it is going to help our velocity. And sometimes we just need to hit the pause and say, are we still working on the right things? And is now the right time to be doing those? So we want to encourage team participation. This will help build that consensus through real engagement as a team. Story maps are not documentation. This is kind of important that it is the place where we go to generate these ideas and to have the conversations and to iterate. And conversation and mutual understanding is really one of the main outcomes from story mapping. We also try to really focus on user value and keep that at the core of all of our story work. And I think that's really helped keep the success of the project in mind. And when possible, use the effort impact scale to try to find the priority in conjunction with the story mapping. So I think that's the brief introduction of story mapping. Feel like I might have gone too fast, but luckily we have lots of time, I think, for Q&A. Did I miss anything?
No,
Okay.
I think we got everything. Unless there's questions from anyone in the audience.
Yeah, you have one Q&A, and thank you both so much. This is very interesting. But someone is asking, thank you for sharing Miro as a tool to do storyboarding activity. What do you think of this tool as a way to do an asynchronous storyboarding activity, like say across a community like Samvera for prioritizing open issues for something like Hyrax?
I would say indeed. I mean, most of the work that we do is asynchronous with our customers. And for the most part, our teams have been distributed as well. And we've used this and other tools, and Miro just has been the one that we've landed on over maybe the last year. Really, it has the tools that we just, I think, that have really helped us up our game. Norm, do you have anything to add?
I was going to say, you can also take a look and see if actually there was some participation. So you can start to see here our actual history of what we were doing in here. So there is some way to track to make sure that people are looking. That's maybe one thing that people are looking for when you're doing the asynchronous work, is making sure, did people do some of that work, right?
It might inform whether it's working or not.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
While we're waiting for other questions, is there anything particularly challenging that you've run into, or sort of problems using Miro that you've already worked out in this process, or sort of things to watch out for?
I think one of the things is when you're trying to, mostly when we're trying to ideation, is there's a lot of stuff going on. Everybody's trying to put post-it notes on the board, and you start copying and duplicating things. What happens is people tend to step over each other a little bit. And it's mainly just a user problem that you thought you grabbed something and you didn't. So you just have to remind everybody to be patient and kind to yourself and to everyone. To, sometimes these, for example, on the board here, if I were to have this and then Rachel come along, when I select an object, I'm the owner of it, and no one else can take it. So that's the only user interface issue that I can see that was a problem.
Sometimes what we'll do too is maybe you want your own color, so you can kind of create a bunch of tickets in one color and then just move them, and then those are your very own. So that's kind of one way we've helped not step on each other. Another thing that we've done is just like, here's Norm's area down in the lower left quadrant, and here's mine. And we're just kind of copying and pasting our own cards.
Great. We have a question. So for clarification, who should be calling for or facilitating the meetings? Would it perhaps be product owners?
Yeah, I think product owners or project managers, I think depending on who typically does that in your organization. But really the one who's owning, what we work on eventually is the product owner. So I'd say someone else can facilitate that, so the product owner can be a part of it. But who owns that is the outcome is the product owner, I think.
Great. Do you have any examples you can share of finding information you didn't know before after your software project that came out as a result of this storyboarding process?
Ooh, repeat.
Sure. Do you have any examples of, I guess, things that you have learned about a software project that came out only as a result of you doing the storyboarding process?
I wish I had a specific example. I do know when we started to do this, at least the product team has walked away thinking, oh we learned so much from the team that informed our backlog or informed our stories or structure that way. I don't have specifics, but we got jazzed really when we started using this with clients and with customers and with our internal process.
Oh, great. Another question. I really like the point about using story mapping at any point in a project, not just at the start. Are there any examples you can share from your experience about when or how story mapping was used to clarify or refocus a project that was already underway?
That's also a good question. Specifically, I know that we recently took to the board when we were kind of going down one avenue, and it was maybe just kind of chugging along, and we've just been like, hey, let's go to the board and let's map this out, and whether it's a story map or a user flow, but really those exercises just are very helpful in just hitting the pause button and then realigning.
And everybody all of a sudden remembers, oh, that's right. That's why we did that. Oh,
Yes.
okay. Yes. Now I remember. So sometimes it's just more of that shared context and understanding the 50,000 foot ideation of why you're doing what you're doing instead of down in the trees, looking at the leaves and whatnot. So you would go up, and I think then the developers or maybe the project manager, everyone kind of gets here's where we're going. Here's why we want to go there.
That makes a lot of sense. And Mark from your team chimed in to say that we've often clarified requirements in ways that made the work much easier to implement. We've also found ideas that fell in the high effort, low impact quadrant that we could drop from scope.
Right.
Yep.
Have you all used Miro for other things besides storyboarding? Have you used it for other approaches?
Indeed.
Yeah, I was gonna say we've used it for flows. I've used it for looking at site maps to discover or understand a new project. I may, as a UX designer, go ahead of everyone on the team and actually build up a flow of what I see, and then have a discussion with the developers and like, oh, well, you're missing this, this, and that. So we have different tools. Again, it's a tool for us to share and collaborate. So that's the best part about it.
Yeah. So yeah, wireframes, user flows.
Yeah.
And that's the user flow has actually been very informative. And again, there are templates that Miro has, but you can go freeform as well.
That's very cool. We have one last question. Can you share more pictures of Zuzu in Slack?
I might have a few. I just get a kick out of that particular shot. But yeah, thank you. That's sweet. These are, oh, somebody put an iguana. Oh, bearded dragon.
Yep.
I love it.
I think Max put that in there.
Oh, thank you, Max.
Thank you, Max.
Very nice.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much for this.
Well, and yeah, and thank you everyone for coming and listening.